Unlocking attachments is one of the main pieces of Call of Duty. You get a gun, you grind it, you get to unlock attachments, you make it better and better. But some guns have had integrated attachments already with the gun. You didn't have to do any work. It was just plug and play and you were on your way. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos. Today we're going to go over the 10 best integrated attachments. That's not necessarily just an integrated suppressor. It could be anything integrated on the gun to where they hand it to you and it's ready to go. Drop a like on the video, guys. Let's hit a like goal of 642. And I put up a video the other day and I told you guys about my first book that I'm writing and I had a lot of comments and a lot of support. So I wanted to let you guys know that I've also created a separate author TikTok and Instagram just for that journey. So if you're interested in that, I'll put those in the description if you want to give me a follow over there. But now it's time for the best guns with integrated attachment. Let's kick things off at number 10 with the OSA in Infinite Warfare. Infinite Warfare had an interesting lineup of weapons. There were brand new futuristic guns, there was futuristic reimaginings of old guns, and there were even classic weapons which were supposed to be the one-to-one remakes of legacy weapons. You had the Intervention, the UMP-45, and one of these classic weapons was the OSA. It was a remake of the AXR-60 from COD Ghost, which I always thought was a weird choice, but okay. No disrespect to the ARX, but it's not exactly what I would call classic, especially at a time that Infinite Warfare came out, because at that point, Ghost was only 3 years old, but whatever. Full auto assault rifle had a bit of a following in Infinite Warfare because it had a really insane theoretical time to kill, assuming you could control the recoil. But on top of being a solid weapon, Infinity Ward decided to give it an integrated grenade launcher, which is a little weird because the original ARX didn't have one of those. But here you go, some really cheesy things you could do with the built-in noob tube, and it was a little busted in hardcore modes, especially since it was the only under-barrel grenade launcher in the entire game, so nobody was ever expecting it. It was a strong weapon. Since it had an integrated attachment, it's eligible for the list. I mean, for all the hate the game got, I think the OSA deserves a little shout-out. Before we move on, guys, if you're getting anything from G2A.com, remember, it is Adventurous August. All kinds of deals happening right now. Link is at the top of the description. At number 9, the Chimera in Modern Warfare 2 2022. This was the new COD Universe's version of the Honeybadger, so you should know what to expect here. Lightweight assault rifle, built-in suppressor for staying off the radar and leaning into the stealthy playstyle that it had. The Chimera fighter at an even 800 rounds per minute. Had a pretty average damage per shot, but it made up for it with some really good handling and some very manageable recoil. Plus, like I said, the fact that it had the built-in suppressor meant you could lean into the more stealthy play without having to sacrifice one of your attachment slots to make that happen. I guess you could say the Chimera struggled beyond mid-range, and I think it's pretty true, I guess, since the bullet velocity wasn't that great and the damage drop-off could get pretty brutal, but you were supposed to use the gun at close to mid-range. I'm not going to knock it too far down the list here. Plus, the gun carried over into Modern Warfare 3 2023, where I think it was a way better choice since the movement was faster and the average time to kill was longer. Kind of gave you more of a chance to fit into that stealth niche if you were trying to do that. Now, it unfortunately didn't recreate the iconic reload animation of the classic Honeybadger. I don't understand why not. That would have been the cherry on the top, but here it is. At number 8, the Ripper Evo in Infinite Warfare. Now, speaking of guns that were remakes with new names, the Ripper Evo was meant to be the futuristic update to the iconic Ripper from COD Ghost. I think this one did a good job. This SMG had 2 firing modes, a faster but less accurate mode for close quarters and a slower, very accurate mode for mid-range, and both were very, very viable. The Ripper Evo also had a built-in hybrid sight, which is what makes it eligible for this list today. When you used it at close range, you would use built-in iron sights, but when you swapped over to AR mode, those sights would open up to a closer zoom for more precise shooting. Now, you may say that's kind of cheating. I don't think it was. I mean, it's a hybrid sight. That's the integrated attachment. Either way, the Ripper Evo was fun to use. Had a pretty passionate following in the Infinite Warfare days. Granted, it wasn't as passionate as the classic Ripper, but it was still good. At number 7, the Rangers in Modern Warfare Remastered. Now, when Raven Software started adding DLC guns to Modern Warfare Remastered, the community was pissed off. But you know what? If you're gonna put DLC weapons in a remastered game, you might as well just stick to legacy weapons, and that is why I kind of liked having the Rangers in there. They debuted in classic Modern Warfare 2, and when Raven brought them back for MWR, they decided to integrate the akimbo option into them, so you could only run 2 of them at once. I think it made sense because back in the Modern Warfare 2 days, you basically never ever saw somebody running them with any attachment other than akimbo. They weren't running a single Ranger. It also made the Rangers feel really unique in MWR because they were the only gun in the game that even had an akimbo option, since that attachment didn't actually exist back in COD 4. They were strong, they were fun to use, but they weren't so strong that they dominated the game. I think it was a good addition, even if I preferred MWR with 0 DLC weapons. And number 6, the AS Val in Black Ops 6. Now, the AS Val was one of the best guns in Black Ops 6 for the first couple months of the game's life cycle, but now that it's been patched up a few times, it's just a really good AR. Fan favorite rifle, built-in suppressor, keeps you off the radar during those aggressive fights, and with how insane the time to kill can be, you were definitely going to want to take advantage of that. Fire rate's pretty fast for an assault rifle, and even though the recoil could get a little bit nasty and the bullet velocity wasn't the best, nobody cared. Because the intended playstyle with this thing was to get right up in people's faces and spray them down while staying hidden from enemies on the minimaps. So if you were aiming high and sticking to close quarters engagements, it was a really good weapon in Black Ops 6. I mean, I knew if I left it off the list that you guys would probably come at me, and even though people seem to hate Black Ops 6 right now, this gun deserves to be here. Now we arrive at the top 5, one of my favorites. The Chainsaw and Ghost. This was one of the most unique LMGs in COD history. Still one of my favorites to this day, even if it wasn't actually that good on a lot of maps. The Chainsaw was a hipfire LMG with a built-in laser sight. I would say it made it a little more accurate beyond close range, had some pretty cheesy stats for it. The damage was decent, killed in 4 to 5 shots by default, but the kicker was it had this juicy 40% headshot bonus, and the fire rate could be cranked up to over 1,000 if you threw on a rapid fire attachment. Also, even though it was a hipfire weapon, you could tighten the spread. You could hold down the left trigger, which would make it a lot easier to stay consistent with without true precision, I guess. It was a cheesy weapon, yes. Not the kind of thing you would use if you were actually trying to play well. But if you got it on one of the smaller maps like Strike Zone or even Unearthed, you could get some serious work done. And since it had the built-in laser sight, here it is today. At number 4, we talked about it earlier briefly, the Ripper and Ghost. You know the Ripper, one of the first DLC guns in COD history, the first hybrid gun in the franchise. Just like the Ripper Evo from IW, the Ripper had a fast-firing high recoil mode and a slow-firing low recoil mode, and you could swap back and forth with the hybrid sight, making each one easier to use. The hybrid sight made it eligible for the list. And since the Ripper was a freak of nature in this game, it's at number 4. This SMG was nothing short of amazing. The fast-firing mode was great for close-range encounters, while the slow-firing mode was actually a very capable assault rifle competitor due to how fast the average time to kill was in the game. You could easily keep up with both close and long-range engagements here without ever having to swap guns, and the Ripper solidified itself as one of the most iconic weapons from this era of COD. Now, it's a bit of a shame that it was a paid DLC weapon, because that meant not actually everybody got to use it, but if you did use the Ripper back in the day, you probably used it a lot. It was hard to put down once you got the hang of it. At number 3, the USR in COD Ghost. Did you know this weapon had an integrated attachment? Probably wouldn't have known because it was a pretty useless attachment, but it was technically there, so here it is. Since the USR was awesome, it jumps to the number 3 spot. The USR was a bolt-action sniper rifle designed to be the quick scoper's weapon of choice in COD Ghost. Infinity Ward did a really good job with this handle. The gun felt smooth, had very quick ADS animations, made it amazing for basically any kind of sniper, and the integrated attachment on it was called a recoil compensator. And the way that worked was every time you got a kill, the recoil would decrease until you died, at which point the recoil would reset to default values. Now, hardly anyone noticed this because the USR was a bolt-action weapon, so nobody was paying attention to the recoil to begin with. But with that being said, the USR was an awesome weapon, and it helped keep the sniping community alive and active during the Ghost years, so even to this day, some people consider the USR to be one of the best quick scoping weapons in COD history, despite how divisive Ghost was as a game. At number 2, the AS Val in Modern Warfare Reboot. Now, the Black Ops 6 version of this gun may have been nuts, but it wasn't anywhere close to the original. This DLC assault rifle completely took over the multiplayer when it was added to the game because of a bug that made it puncture through every surface in the game without ever losing any damage. Obviously, that's game breaking. But even after that was fixed, the time to kill was, this thing was one of the fastest in the entire game. It remains a really popular weapon to this day with those in the community who are still populating the Modern Warfare 2019 servers, if that's you. It's definitely built for close range, even though it was classified as an assault rifle. You're supposed to use it like an SMG, slide around the map, get in people's faces. But aiming at the upper chest and head would get you a near insta-kill every time. And that integrated suppressor meant you were staying off the radar. Even if the enemy was keeping a close eye on their compass, it didn't matter. It's one of the best integrated attachment weapons in the franchise. I almost gave it the #1 spot today, but then I remembered at #1. The Honeybadger and Ghost. Had to be on the top. Absolutely. Honeybadger is one of the most iconic weapons in Call of Duty history. Even though a massive percentage of the COD community hated the game, everybody was in agreement that the Honeybadger was awesome. This assault rifle fired at an even 800 rounds per minute, typically killed in 3 to 4 shots, super clean iron sights, recoil low, built-in suppressor, you didn't have to use one of your attachment slots to stay healthy, and it had one of the best firing sounds for a suppressed gun ever put in a Call of Duty game, as well as one of the coolest reload animations in the entire franchise. Gave it a ton of extra personality compared to the rest of the rifles in Ghost. It felt alive. The Honeybadger was absolutely everywhere back in the Ghost days, and despite the game being so hated, it's one of the most recognizable weapons from the Xbox 360 era of COD. Now, the AS Val may have had a faster time to kill, but when it comes to weapons with integrated attachments, I think the Honeybadger is by far the most iconic in the franchise. Here it is at #1. There you go. Let me know one that didn't make the list that should have, and I'll see you soon.